Good evening all. John Stettin, past the wire, taking you inside the Sport of Kings as best I can. It's Preakness week. We've got pretty exciting weekend coming up. Justify will be running into Preakness, is scheduled to run into Preakness. He'll be having a rematch with Good Magic, the runner-up to him in the Kentucky Derby. And should be an interesting day if Justify comes through, and he'll be an overwhelming favorite to do so. We'll have another horse going for the Triple Crown. That always brings a lot of excitement and attention to the Sport of Kings. And, you know, like I've said before, those Triple Crowns have a tendency to come in streaks and in spurts. And, you know, we had American Pharaoh break a long drought. And it'll be exciting to see Justify going for it. Now, with that said, you know, they do come in spurts. There's also been a lot of really, really good horses that have, you know, stepped up to that plate, only to fall a little bit short. Probably none shorter than Real Quiet when Victory Gallop nailed him on the wire. But makes for a lot of competition, great racing, great wagering opportunities, and is really, really good for the Sport of Kings. A lot planned for the Preakness. I've already studied some of the card on Friday. I've got an opinion on the Black-Eyed Susan. That's for another time prior to the race. Today, I want to talk a little bit about what happened at Belmont last Saturday. Big day, had a lot of big stake races, and there was a lengthy delay prior to the first race initiated by the jockeys. And, you know, for a while, nobody knew what was going on, and then it, you know, became widely reported, I think initially by TVG and then all over social media, that the riders were seeking a meeting with NTRA management regarding the weights, and that is true in part. You know, riders have been trying to get the scale of weights changed for a long time, and it's really been falling on deaf ears. It's something that probably should happen. It's not going to affect the horses. It's not going to affect racing. It's a small amount that they're talking about, and for some reason, they're getting a lot of resistance and falling on deaf ears. So they kind of seized an opportunity to get management's attention, and sometimes, unfortunately, you have to do that. I don't think that there was any intent of inconveniencing horsemen, bettors, fans, or anybody else. I just think it's, you know, kind of how things unfolded, and they made a collective decision to, you know, get somebody's attention after obviously being frustrated they couldn't get it prior to that. And I would imagine they certainly got their attention that day. But the mistake that a lot of people are making is that it was not only the weights. There are a bunch of other issues involved, and people should probably be aware of them. And I, for the most part, support the riders and think that they're in the right, and you're talking about safety and, you know, some things that may inconvenience us as bettors, it's easier for us to adapt to than it is for riders to adapt to when it becomes a safety issue. I don't think any of the horses were put at any risk by, you know, parading around the paddock a little bit longer than they're used to Saturday afternoon. So I think that's really a moot point. But, you know, a rider has to maintain a weight of about 114, maybe 115 pounds, stripped naked, in order to ride at the current scale of weights with the equipment, the saddle, the boots, everything that they got to wear. The saddle and the boots, everything, all the equipment that gets factored into the weight on the horse that you see in the program. So that said, they're trying to raise that a couple of pounds, which is going to help a lot of guys have to stop sitting in the sweat box, becoming severely dehydrated, using all different types of methods to reduce weight on riding days. I know jockeys that ride in their car in sweatsuits in the summertime with the heat blaring. A lot of guys flip, which is a really, really bad habit of eating and throwing up your food, which leads to all kinds of health problems. And if a couple of pounds is going to make a difference to them to be healthier and have better lives when they're retired from riding and not long-term health issues, I think we all should be for it and support them. They've got a pretty rough job. True, they choose that way to make a living, but you could make it a lot safer. Some of the other issues that came up, though, are interesting. The NTRA has a safety kind of like a safety alliance, and they accredit racetracks for conforming to it. And NTRA is indeed an accredited racetrack, but there are some things in that guideline or in those recommendations that, according to the riders, NTRA has not been following. One of them is having at least one paramedic out there in the morning and at least 2 out there in the afternoon. Now, we know that the ambulance follows the guys around in the afternoon, but there are EMTs on the ambulance as opposed to a paramedic. And if a serious incident takes place and a potentially life-threatening or a potentially paralyzing incident takes place, you're going to want a paramedic there as opposed to an EMT, and an EMT really being backup. And, that's something that hasn't been being done. Another concern is the large fields, which as bettors we love, on the turf course. Now, the issue is not so much the large fields, it's more the configuration of the turf course. And I've spoken to some jockeys about this, and when you start some of those races on the turn and you put 12 horses in the gate, it creates a little bit of a hazard with that coming out of that turn and then the sharp turn to the left to get on the backstretch. And, sometimes with that short run into the first turn when you've got a little bit of a shorter race around 2 turns, it can become a little bit dangerous. Even some of the marathons start going into the far turn, and those big fields make it very tough around those turns, especially with not a good straight run up for riders to kind of get position and get their horses settled. When you go into that turn and into those sharp turns, only a few strides out of the gate, and there's a big field, it can create a bit of a hazard. So if Belmont is indeed rebuilt, hopefully they configure things with, larger field sizes in mind. But until then, if we've got to suffer on some of the field sizes to keep guys safe and keep them trying hard and in the game 100%, it's not anything that we love it as bettors, but it's something that I think is worthwhile and, has a lot of validity. Safety comes first for our horses and for our riders, and that should really go without saying. So I don't know that anybody should be down on them. I think we should all be supporting them. And, these seem to me to be easy things to work out. If I was at the negotiating table here, this sounds like stuff that if you got some shot callers at the table, if they can't iron this stuff out, there's a problem. It's easy stuff. The other thing is, maybe a year or so ago, maybe a little bit more, I became aware of a concussion that Eric Cancel suffered and spoke about on its post-time radio show with JJ Grassi, and a show that I've been on for a long time. And I wrote an article, I think it's on the website, it's called Protecting Our Own or Protecting Their Own. You could read it, and it's all about the progress we've made in our industry with concussions. Riders sustain a lot of concussions, and we're probably the only sport without a firm, definitive concussion protocol for riders. Now, I don't know that this was the case, but I don't think you need to be Sherlock Holmes to kind of connect the dots here. Saturday morning, Jose Lascano, who rides in New York regularly, you all probably know him, and you should, he suffered a concussion in a training accident Saturday morning. That could be what prompted the, quote, a little bit of a Mexican standoff to, get everybody to the table to discuss some of these issues. When you see one of your own go down, obviously you get concerned, and, nobody's written that or said that, but like I said, I don't think you need to be Sherlock Holmes to figure Jose goes down, the riders call for this meeting. They did ride. I don't think that anything was, firmly ironed out yet, but hopefully there's a plan for that in the future. But that's actually what happened Saturday morning, and what inconvenienced some people out there that got, really annoyed at. We should all be used to it. I mean, Gulfstream delays races like that all the time for no reason whatsoever, except to maybe increase the handle or increase the pool. And, you know, we all learn to deal with it. I actually like it when Gulfstream does that because it gives me extra time to wager. So I don't complain about it. There's been races I didn't think I was going to bet, and there's been so much time till post time at Gulfstream that I decided, you know what? I'm going to take a shot, and sometimes it's paid off. Not always, but sometimes it has. So I don't complain about that stuff or let it get me out of shape at all. You don't sweat the small stuff. But when it comes to safety and riders being safe and feeling safe, which means they're going to be trying harder for you and for the owners, and I mean, that's just, to me, a no-brainer. I think we should all be behind that and all support that. And I think racetracks should be very, very receptive to making those tweaks to make those guys feel safe, and girls feel safe out there, and you know, show them a little bit of respect and love that they deserve. So that's my thought on that, and that's what actually happened on Saturday. There's been, you know, like I said, all those reports about it was the weights or it was this or it was that. It was actually a combination of those things, and it actually prompted the Jockey Guild to no longer support that NTRA Safety Alliance because they're not, you know, they're accrediting tracks that are not following the guidelines. So hopefully they'll get some attention and move in the right direction. Okay, that's about all for now. Like I said, we'll be back with a lot more stuff for the Preakness and Preakness weekend. We'll have our normal, regular stuff on tracking trips as always. And I hope you enjoy listening. Always a pleasure to talk to you. Got anything to say, anything you want me to address, always feel free to reach out. John Stettin, Past the Wire, from the War Room Studio, office, like I said, whatever you want to call it. Have a lovely evening, everybody. And as always, ciao for now.